Yes, here we go. What about this? A good friend of mine is in the building. She joins me here after a fantastic international fight week where she dominated throughout the week. All sorts of great content. She joins me here on the heels of potentially one of the most impressive championship wins of all time. Like, it has to be in there. Laura Sanko, welcome to Submission Radio.
Thank you. I appreciate the intro as always. I don't know that I dominated. I might have been dominated, but whatever. Same thing.
Dude, you did a great job. For those people that saw, like, you were through International Fight Week, you were here, you were there, you were everywhere. You did a fantastic job. The weigh-in show, of course. Also, you did that interview with Sean Strickland, which I thought you handled really, really well. You did a fantastic job. I'd like to see anybody go out there and try to interview Sean Strickland and do what you did.
I may have overestimated my ability to keep on topic, but you know, at the end of the day, you just gotta. I had forgotten. I meant to hold up a like a nice little sign that said the views of Sean Strickland do not necessarily reflect the views of one Laura Sanko, but I think it's implied. I think it's
and listen, Sean Strickland he had a big weekend, right?
He did. He
went into the cage with Chris Curtis for a few punches.
Yep, busy man.
Hey, let me get to the main man of the hour, though. Ilia Topuria. That win resonated with fans to a degree I haven't seen in quite some time. Probably the last time something like that shocking happened in the octagon was maybe when Conor beat Jose Aldo. Like, I remember people being kind of stunned for days on end. Ilia Topuria kindly put the fight out onto social media after the fight happened, which I could just imagine the people in the UFC be like, oh my God, it's already out there. We might as well put it out as well. But everybody got a chance to see it, right? It was a master knockout, an incredible moment in the sport.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you just got to let those clips fly, because that is what we all fell in love with Conor McGregor. And you know, I don't know. My biggest takeaway, my 30,000-foot view takeaway from the weekend is I felt like I got something back as a fan. You know, after the bumpy couple of weeks, but really bumpy couple of years, feeling like I was maybe in a bit of a toxic relationship with Jon Jones. You know, I want you to love me and you don't, and you know, you say you're going to come back and you won't, and then, you know, to kind of have like a yearning as a fan for those days when you would just be so high on someone's ability to create magic. It feels like we got that back on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting because Topuria has the skills, right, that we would see from a Jon Jones and like the Conor McGregors in their prime. But also he's just kind of like an interesting type of fighter as well, because he brings his family into the ring. He just wants to fight the best guy. Like, you could see he's celebrating the day before fighting Charles, and it seems cocky. But then he goes out there and does that.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Even though he's definitely a big copy in certain parts of Conor McGregor with his trash talk, even copying the balls on their forehead reference just the other day. What would you classify this package of Ilia Topuria as? Like, it's hard to really peg him as one thing or the other. Like, he's such a rare entity.
He certainly has the aura. The aura is building. But what I find so fascinating is that, you know, people fell in love with this idea of Mystic Mac, that Conor McGregor could somehow magically predict the future, that he could speak into existence these things and they would happen. And there was something incredibly otherworldly about that. And with Ilia, it feels a little bit more cerebral. Like, he's doing the same things. He's calling the same shots with specificity, by the way. And when he does it, you get the sense that he has... It's more tactical. He has watched the film. He has dissected his opponent to such a degree that his confidence is less about manifestation and magic and more about, I've put in the work. I've watched the film and I know my abilities and how they compare to what I have watched. And this is what I will do. And man, there's something pretty incredible about that. Not that one is more than the other. I mean, I love the magic and I love the mysticism and the idea that you could just sort of speak things into existence. But to watch Ilia Topuria approach this as a business and simply state facts, state the fact of his greatness, state the fact of how he's going to finish people, and do it with equal parts humility and bravado. That's what's so interesting to me, is he is equally humble and equally cocky in the exact same moment. And that's actually a pretty difficult thing. It's a difficult line to ride and a difficult balance to strike, because you kind of want to, you see him celebrating before the biggest, most important night of his life. And there's part of you, there's part of me as a fan that goes, you know what, that's kind of bullshit, especially when you're facing someone as good and as beloved as Charles Oliveira. But then when you hear him talk about how much respect he has for Charles Oliveira and how he doesn't like to be the one to rank himself in the pound for pound rankings, you know, that's a discussion for other people to do. Like, and he means it when he says it. So it's a fascinating dichotomy of a guy who is otherworldly confident in his skills, but you kind of can't be mad at it, because it's like, A, he backs it up every single time, and B, there's just a sense that it's a knowing because of the work that he has done and because of the studying that he has done on his opponents, rather than just sheer bravado.
Alex Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and now Charles Oliveira, back to back, right? Let's dissect that for just a second, because I was trying to go through my mind, like, who else had this kind of run in the history of MMA, right? And I just want to bring up a couple of records here. Where is it? And I want to get your thoughts. Obviously, Conor McGregor, right? He had a great run as well. I was trying to compare this run to Ilia's. I bring it up on the screen as we look at it. And It was really this like Aldo Diaz Alvarez run where he won the title, but you've got the loss. You got the loss there to Nate Diaz, right? So automatically, that's not really there. That doesn't compare. And then I got Jon Jones here. Just want to show you as well. He had some really great wins back to back as well. This is kind of the Legends Tour where he beat Lyoto for the belt.
Yes.
Beat Rashad, Vitor, Chael, Gustafsson, like Rampage. He beat Shogun for the belt. But yeah, again, like I felt like none of those guys were like Alex Volkanovski, a rare fighter that you don't see very often getting finished like that. Max Holloway getting finished like that. I feel like that run is even more special than that. Is there anybody in the UFC that's had a better run than those 3 wins back to back the way that Ilia's done it?
In the UFC right now, absolutely not. No, second to none. I would still argue that the shine of Jon Jones beginning to his career is one that's going to be difficult to eclipse, but he's maybe like one fight away from doing it. And that I hate even saying that, because it's like, I feel like it's, you know, like I'm somehow taking away from what he did. Jon Jones beat, like, how many of those were champions or former champions in a row that we just looked at?
Let's have a look right here. So he went through quite a list. So yeah, Shogun champion, Jackson champion, Machida champion, Evans
and at
champion.
the time, you got to remember too, like Lyoto Machida seemed invincible at the time.
Oh yeah.
And then Rashad Evans, and then Vito. I mean, look at how many.
Lyoto Machida, he had one of those wins similar to like an Ilia Topuria where he had that guillotine on, remember, and then he let it go, and Lyoto just kind of fell on the ground, and we're like, oh my god. That's
the other thing I want to bring up is, like, it wasn't just that Jon was beating, you know, these champions. It was the moments of devastation. But that's what we're seeing from Ilia Topuria, and that is what is going to make him, or is already making him, a superstar. It's not just winning. It is winning in such an egregious fashion that you are creating these moments that will live rent-free in fans' heads for eternity. And you create enough of those moments, and then you become the greatest of all time. I'm not ready to crown him the greatest of all time yet, but man, does it feel like he could get there.
Who is your greatest of all time, by the way?
Oh, are we really going to do this right now?
Is it Jon Jones or like Anderson?
It is Jon Jones. It is Jon Jones for me. It is.
Hey, it's okay. This is a safe zone.
It's like asking me. It's honestly, it's like asking, and this is just an analogy, guys. I'm a married woman and my husband is my favorite lover of all time. But it's like asking a woman, like, who's your best lover of all time? And you have to, like, in your mind, you're like, it was the guy that cheated on me and that, like, you know, left me when I was drunk. And, you know, like you don't want to give it to them, but you
left me at a wrecked car.
Yeah, exactly. It was, but no.
5 times or something. Yeah.
And maybe it's my own personal, obviously I'm not the only one saying that Jon Jones is the greatest of all time, but my own personal opinion is also colored by like the time in which I fell in love with MMA the most. It's not when I discovered MMA, but it is when I have the most memories of just being a fan. I wasn't working at the UFC yet. I was only training. I hadn't even fought yet. Being at bars, watching pay-per-views, and just going absolutely, you know, apeshit when he was doing those incredible things that we just looked at. So part of it is like my own internal, it's hard not to think of him as the greatest because he was in my mind for so long. So that's where he stays for now.
I think that this whole year with Aspinall thing just didn't really help us. Like, see, we didn't mention GSP, by the way. I want to bring up his record.
Yes.
Fascinating record here. So first things up, the victories, right?
Yeah.
So he beat Thiago Alves, pretty good win. Dan Hardy, obviously, I think for us, it's a fun win because, you know, Dan's a great guy and he survived that armbar and all. And it was kind of like the heyday of MMA. Josh Koscheck, people underrate Josh Koscheck. He was a bad boy. That was a good win. Jake Shields, great win. Condit, good win. Nick Diaz, good win.
A lot of decisions, though.
A lot of decisions. But what I also want to share with you here is, I'm just going to jump into this wiki so I don't have to cut it. If you go a little further back, he did have that run where we had the loss to Matt Serra.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. People get caught. And the loss to Matt Hughes, which is, by the way, no one talks about Matt Hughes. Mm-hmm. He was a great champion in his own right. But again, like when you look at legacies, Ilia Topuria, what he's building right now, and GSP. And also Johnny Hendricks, there was maybe an argument that Hendricks won that fight. I don't know, very close fight. But yeah, legacy-wise, again, I feel like Ilia Topuria is on that track to beating GSP here as well, especially with the second belt so quickly and early in his 100%. Career.
You said it there. You said it. You said people get caught. You know who doesn't get caught? Ilia Topuria.
Mm-hmm.
Jon Jones. That is rarefied air. To be a double champion without a single loss. And obviously, again, it's like, do we have to have this conversation about Jon, what you do? Of course we don't really count the loss to Matt Hamill. So, but yeah, you do, because it's on there and it's listed. So is Ilia surpassing him in that respect? Yeah, you sure did. To be able to become a double champion without taking a single loss has never been done before, ever. And the fact that just a moment ago you very flippantly said, yeah, I mean, everyone gets caught. That's the nature of the sport. Everyone does get caught. That's why we don't make a big deal when we don't take away from GSP's legacy when he loses to Matt Serra. It just becomes part of the story and his comeback and like all those things. But it almost like that you have to appreciate the times when someone does it without a single blemish. And that is what he has done so far.
Yeah. And I think the PED stuff, speaking of getting caught with Jon Jones, I was there at UFC 200, me and Casper and stuff, when that fight didn't happen. And we saw it happen with Anaheim, UFC 214. And I get it. There are situations that happen. It just doesn't help your legacy. And GSP, a great legacy in the sense that he's always been kind to everyone. The way, of course, he promised to defend the middleweight belt. Rob Whittaker, against Robert Whittaker and some various other people, but then he vacated it straight away, right? Yeah. So these people didn't wait around for a year. That's the difference.
I am interested to know how much time, or if, will erase some of these transgressions that we feel so sharply right now from Jon Jones, because there are other athletes I can point to who have had jail time and come back, and we now think of them as like, oh, they're the great guy. You know, look what he did for this. I mean, he was incredible. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, fight sports. It's just like, we'll forgive anyone with anything, right? And anyway, long story short, let's get back into talking about the greats, because this got me thinking, and you're going to hate me for this question, but you're a genius and I have to ask you. Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? I'm going straight there. before this whole thing happened, and obviously Islam, incredible legacy, but I feel like for a lot of us, Khabib was that kind of dominant lightweight champion. Obviously, we've had BJ Penn in the past, who was also great, but I feel like a lot of he had his losses and he kind of didn't take training as seriously, and he had some bad performances. Khabib was the guy that would go in there and dominate and destroy. I want to bring up this record here for those that might have not really caught his career, because we've got a lot of new fans tuning in these days. He had some big wins, right? Like we saw him basically dominate everyone. The T-Bow fight was a little close, but obviously like Justin Gaethje, he submitted him with like a broken toe. Ali Quinta, that was actually a pretty close fight. That was last second though. Conor McGregor, he absolutely destroyed. Dustin Poirier, he dominated. So he was a destroyer. He was someone that would always go in there and destroy everyone. My question to you is, how would you see a potential matchup between a prime Khabib and the Ilia Topuria we just
that was not the question I was expecting. Ilia's boxing is far too dangerous. I think that the only pathway for Khabib to beat someone like Ilia in this hypothetical that we're running with here would of course be on the ground. And I think we've yet to see Ilia's ground game tested against the elite of the elite. Now, I say that obviously he just fought Charles Oliveira, who is the greatest submission artist of all time. I'm only saying that the fight didn't last long enough for him to be tested. He was tested on the ground for what, 45 seconds? And, was in a bit of a pickle with a heel hook, if I'm remembering correctly, but got out of it and got back up. I don't know that we know enough about Ilia's get-up game. There were some moments in the Bryce Mitchell fight where Bryce was on top and Ilia was a little bit stifled. Whether he chose to be stifled, that's a question, like just, hey, I'm going to be safe until this moment passes type of thing. So that's the only path to victory I could see for Khabib. I could also see Khabib, shooting from an ill-advised distance and getting knocked out.
And I'm thinking Ilia Topuria, and I go, this is a guy that loves to make statements. Does he make the mistake of grappling with Khabib to try and prove a point and getting caught? That's kind of like the only way I see him losing. Like respectfully,
it's interesting
Khabib, right?
Bringing up Khabib though, and not Islam.
What's that? Sorry,
I said it's interesting to me that you're using Khabib as an example and not Islam, which is a potential reality.
Well, I was gonna build to that, but
I just ruined your show.
To you, is Islam the more dominating lightweight champion over Khabib at this point? Well, there's nothing wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Just simply based on who he fought. It takes nothing away from Khabib. Khabib, if I remember right, didn't lose a round. Is that true? Maybe lost one. I can't recall, but that's the line. We'll go with the line. He didn't lose a single round. So difficult to pick apart, a fighter like that. And of course, Islam has been knocked out. I still think that Islam is the more well-rounded, dominating figure and will have a longer run of high-level domination than Khabib chose. If he had stuck around, who knows?
Hey, you're right, because we're on the heels of this JDM fight. If he can win the welterweight belt. By the way, if he wins the welterweight belt here, another fun question for you that you're going to hate me for. If he wins the welterweight belt here, does he then take Ilia Topuria's spot as pound for pound, in your opinion? Now he's ranked number one, Ilia. But then if Islam gets that welterweight belt, does he take that spot?
I don't know if he does it off the back of Jack, and I love Jack. But I don't know if beating a shiny new champion is the same thing as beating a legend and a former champion like Charles Oliveira. That's a tough one because Charles didn't have the belt in his possession, necessarily. Obviously, this was a vacated situation. That's a tough one, Dennis.
And then Ilia's got more title defenses. I mean, Islam's got more title. I mean,
at lightweight, yeah.
At lightweight, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's 7 a.m. I don't even know what's happening right now.
That string of knockouts, though, Islam's defenses are partly, large chunk of them against a featherweight. So, I don't know.
It's going to be a big conversation at the bar, I'll tell you that, for a while, if he can get it done, because JDM is a tough fight. His coach telling me, hey, we're focused on JDM. We feel like he's a bit of a dark horse. We're worried about him. I think that's the way you got to approach it, because we don't know what JDM can bring. And you and me broke down that Bilal fight, and then he came out and he did that. So we don't know what he could bring. If
you
Islam
got me a session with Craig Jones. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, how did that go? By the way,
it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah,
we had a great time. We rolled, and like, you know, obviously he's barely even breathing, and I'm like dying because I haven't been training very hard. I'm trying so hard to impress him too, like trying so hard to impress him. And I just remember thinking after, like, nothing I did was even remotely impressive. But no, it was really fun. And he showed me a handful of things that he was working on with Jack, because I asked him, I was like, you know, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not calling the fight. So can you show me? And he did. And man, each and every single one of them played out in the fight. So I'm definitely on board with the idea that Craig Jones is the key, the anti-Dagestani wrestling key. Yeah,
man. Oh, that's awesome. That's really good to hear. He's such a good dude in real life. I know he's over there in Ukraine. That's where I'm from. Yeah. And he's doing stuff in Kiev, but that's where I'm from.
He's oddly shy.
He's actually like a really cool dude, and he's very thoughtful. And I know he's got like a fun persona, but he's actually a really cool dude.
I was
a great teacher, and very like, very like, yeah.
I was kind of expecting like, I was expecting more his Instagram persona, preparing myself for his, and he's like quiet and kind of shy, and it's great.
So just going back to this Islam and Ilia path. I got to ask you, I know the UFC told Ilia, hey, do not mention 170. Do not say anything after you win. Please don't do it, because they still need him to defend the belt a couple of times at lightweight. But do you believe that if Islam beats JD and becomes a welterweight champion, if Ilia can get, you know, your Paddy, maybe even your Arman out of the way, do you think he could be the first guy to go up to welterweight and potentially fight for that welterweight belt against Islam?
There's nothing that he could say that I wouldn't at this point at least give him a solid chance and believe that he was capable of doing it. Yeah, I absolutely think he's capable of becoming the first 3-weight world champion. I agree with you that I think it's, you know, it's funny because we were arguing about this on the weigh-in show. I threw it out there as a potential next, you know, obviously before the UFC was clearly like, we are not doing that.
What was it?
I threw out the idea of him fighting, if Islam beats Jack, that should be his next fight, only because I'm just taking the approach of like the marketing approach. We need big fights. I am a fan. I want big fights. I want super fights. I know Dana hates stadiums. I want to be in a stadium. I want to do big shit, and I want to watch big shit. And to me, that's the biggest fight. Or do we get Conor to come back and fight him?
Well, that's a good question.
Either way, I want something big.
Do you still want to see Conor fight him? Sorry. Do you still want to see Conor fight him after what we saw this past weekend and what we've seen from Conor lately? Do you think?
I think it's likely. Based on where Conor's focus seems to be, obviously not. But if we're going to sit here and pretend that Ilia is fighting Khabib, why can't we sit here and pretend that Ilia could fight Conor? And how insanely big that would be. And I don't know, is that enough to get his interest and his focus and his preparation back in line? I don't know. But can you imagine a stadium in Spain where Ilia Topuria is facing Conor McGregor? That would be bananas. And I'm sure you're going to clip this, or someone is, and people are going to be like, she's an absolute idiot. That would never.
No. I think the only thing people would bring up is Conor McGregor so washed right now that you almost don't have as much interest because Ilia's in his prime and Conor McGregor's.
I agree, but
not.
I agree in principle because it's been so long since he fought. But tell me you wouldn't.
Hey, I'm tuning in. Ilia Topuria's taking his shit. I'm buying that on pay-per-view.
Yes.
Watching him knock those shits out into the bowl. Hey,
can I just mention one thing? Because
please.
I'm saying this not because I think Conor and he are at this point in their career equally suited to be having it's Arman Sarukian is that fight, right? that's the fight that makes sense from an analytical point of view. But if we're talking about getting Ilia Topuria as the face of the UFC with the full backing, the type of backing that Conor had, because he's getting there, but the reality is he got booed when he came out for the presser. I don't know what causes that. I don't know why that is. I think it's just the love of Charles Oliveira. But that is the point, is like, even at this height, even after 2 sensational knockouts, he's not where Conor was. And can you transfer star power by fighting a legend like that and maybe knocking him out? I don't know, but yeah, I would like to watch it.
It would be pure scenes. It would actually kind of be interesting to see, like, Topuria's not going to take him down. He's going to stand with him. You know, McGregor's compromised with his, he probably can't even grapple. That leg injury was so bad, but he could probably train pretty hard for his boxing. His shots might still be pretty good. There's something there to that. Hey, let me ask you about this. You mentioned Armin. It looks like it might be Paddy Pimblett next. Then I saw DDP dropping a nugget by accident, saying that UFC 319, he heard it was going to be Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett. What's your sort of take on this? Like, do you want to see Paddy Pimblett be rushed into a title shot to potentially fight Ilia next? Do you want to see him potentially fight Justin Gaethje first? What would you prefer?
I'm just going to completely contradict what I said a second ago, because I do think that'd be a very big fight. But I think it'd be an even bigger fight if Ilia was to get past a Justin Gaethje or someone at that level. So, yes, I want to see that fight. I think it's just it's an even bigger fight if Paddy can do something, you know, to put himself in an even more undeniable spot when it comes to the actual, like, fight credibility. He's getting there, no doubt. That last performance was sensational, and I think the haters need to leave exit the room. But I would love for that fight to be even more elevated, and I think one more victory for Paddy would do that. Would he get past Justin Gaethje is a whole other question, right? But that's the point of the fight, is like, wow, if he gets past Justin Gaethje, then holy crap, we need to see this.
And you were saying before you want to see big fights. It's like, oh no, if he goes out there and Justin Gaethje beats him, there goes that big fight. So I can understand why Ilia Topuria might be like willing to get him into the octagon. I found it funny that Dana White was like, who organized that? I wasn't here. I didn't approve this, blah, 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 because I thought this was a whole UFC thing. The way that they shot it, the way he went into the octagon, I thought, oh, okay, this is all pre-planned. It didn't look like it was pre-planned.
I don't have any insight on how that happened, but Dana's comments afterward seemed very organic. So,
yeah, I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It looked like a full WWE promo, right? The shove. Yeah. Then Ilia was being held by security. He had a little grin on his face, like, all right.
I'm here for it. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see the fight. But in reality, Paddy Pimblett did look much better against Michael Chandler. What I was so impressed with was his size, durability, and aggressiveness, and some of the improvements that he's made with his striking. There are still some gaps there, obviously. Like, he does move forward with his chin out. His guard maybe isn't the tightest. And after seeing the precision striking of Ilia Topuria with Charles Oliveira, like, it was like next level. I couldn't imagine a scenario where he doesn't land on Paddy Pimblett at some point in that fight. How would Paddy beat an Ilia Topuria, do you think?
On the ground and by being way, way bigger. But do I think that's the most likely outcome? That, you're asking me to handicap that early. I would not favor Paddy in that fight. But are there viable paths to victory? Is it an interesting potential matchup, especially if we see something, if he fights Justin Gaethje and yet again proves that, like Dricus du Plessis, despite some of the optics, there's something happening in there that maybe we don't fully understand, and that we're not giving him credit for. And so again, if he goes out there and does something impressive against the likes of a Justin Gaethje, not even saying that that's necessarily my pick either. If that happens, though, that's going to say a lot about how he would do against a much shorter, smaller opponent. I was just going to say, I'm not going to say smaller, but he would be smaller. Paddy is absolutely massive as a lightweight, massive. I do think that if Paddy can weather enough of a storm and be a little bit more, just have a better game plan than Charles did, take enough time and therefore enough power off of the shots of Ilia Topuria, use that famous Scouse chin he's got, I think he could make the fight interesting. Again, I don't know that I'm going to favor him odds-wise, but I think it could be interesting.
There is like a confidence to Paddy similar to Ilia, right? Like this untested, but he's kind of got this untested belief in himself. He believes in his chin, his durability, and it's almost like a great time, like a young, big fighter before anything's really happened to him yet, before he suffered the, the knockout loss or, those kinds of losses that change a fighter. So that makes it
he's got a dangerous skill set. His back take would be a problem for anybody, including Ilia Topuria. Now, getting there is a whole other, kettle of fish. Getting past the boxing range of Ilia Topuria to get to your grappling would be the problem in that fight.
Surely that's a stadium fight, like over there in the UK. Surely, like we've had those Tyson Fury boxing matches over there, 90. I could see that being a massive fight, but Dana doesn't like stadiums. We'll see what happens. Just going before
maybe after he does one in boxing, he'll all right.
All right.
Ronda to get him to say yes to women. We just need Allegiant to woo him into this entire world of stadium fighting.
All right, finally, this Islam Ilia Topuria fight. How different do you think it looks, Laura, if it happened at 155 or 170?
I don't know that it looks vastly different. I maybe would have had a different response to that before watching him operate at 55 and clearly dealing just fine with the size discrepancy because Charles is another very big lightweight. Yeah, I don't know that it would be a major X factor. Certainly something that we need to talk about and think about, but I'm all in on Ilia's ability to make the correct call. And I actually think that he's such a high-level operator that he wouldn't risk. He's not going to just like throw the dice for the fun of it, if that makes sense. He doesn't need to. He's clearly set in life. He's not. He's prize fighting, but like I get the sense he doesn't need to be in the way that some of these other guys. So I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to risk it all for a purse. Maybe I'm wrong. So my point with that is like I think he has made the calculated decision that he is more than capable of operating at a high level at 170.
But there's nothing to lose really for him at 170, right? Like let's say he moves up and Islam beats him at 170 versus 155. Are we all going to hold that against Ilia Topuria?
No, of course not. That's what's so great about these. I love it when guys do this. I get the argument that you're holding up a division and you're wasting time, blah, blah, blah. I love people going for it and striving for greatness. I loved it when Izzy did it, even though at the time I remember thinking this is gonna be tough. Like this is a big Jan Blachowicz is a big boy, and that is a big jump in weight. And it turned out, not to work in his favor. But like the act of doing that, of making yourself vulnerable, of going for it, even though you have all of this legacy to protect, I love that. I just don't know that Ilia. I don't know. He seems incredibly calculated. So if he says he can do it, I think he can do it.
I feel like you're kind of leaning towards Ilia beating Islam here.
God, it's hard not to envision him beating everybody after this weekend. And I was the person who, before this weekend, I was not picking Charles. I picked Ilia. Even though I did actually end up picking Charles in one of the pieces that I did. My true pick was Ilia.
Sure.
But I was very much making the argument that the odds were ridiculous and that Charles Oliveira was being disrespected by minus 425. And, and I can make all these arguments of why I felt like those odds were ridiculous. And turns out that they weren't. So even though I did feel like Ilia was going to get the better of him, I had no clue how quickly and how dominantly he would do it. And he called it.
I felt the same way.
He called that shot.
because of the Kamaru Usman Buckley one as well, just recently, the crazy odds there. And I was like, these odds are crazy, man. And then Usman won. And then going into this, it kind of gave me this false sense of, anyway.
Yeah.
I was on the same boat as you, sister. All right, as we wrap up, a little bit of a quiet time in MMA. You got the big 4th of July over there in America, which is a big holiday. You guys are going to be celebrating. Is it 5th of July, 4th of July? 5th of July? 4th of July. So I hope you guys have a nice break with the family. But what's coming up for you? What can we look out for? Any big pieces dropping soon?
Yeah, I'm going to be calling UFC Nashville here in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
A lot. I think I'm with DC and Brendan Fitzgerald, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I have a little bit of time off because I am moving. I am moving into a new house at the end of July / beginning of August. And then we are off to the races with Contender Series and China. And I've got some big things in the fall coming. So good stuff.
Awesome. I love it. Guys, make sure to follow Laura Sanko. Have a great 4th of July. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me here on Submission Radio.